We'll just start by introducing myself, and Mari will introduce herself, and then I will go over the agenda. So as you guys know, I'm Rebecca Key. I am the director of Potrero Kids, but what you may not know is that I am a former SFUSD teacher, a second grade teacher at Paul Revere Elementary. So I saw a lot of kids entering elementary school, and I was part of that journey of watching them enter from kindergarten and, rise to the expectations and experiences that elementary school offers. So that's actually kind of my area of expertise. And I have two kids who have gone through this transition themselves. So I currently have a rising seventh grader. So I just supported him through his transition into his first year of middle school. And my younger son, Ben, will be entering fifth grade this coming fall. So it's been a while since they started kinder, but I definitely paid a lot of attention to their experiences on that journey, partially with the thought of being able to pass that along to other families coming up along the path behind me. So I think that tonight I'll help share a little bit of what I've personally gone through and what I've professionally seen other families gone through, but I'll get to the specifics of the agenda after Mari has a chance to introduce herself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Maddie. I'm the admissions manager, and very similar to Rebecca, I have a rising seventh grader and a rising fourth grader. And so I definitely have a lot of feedback, just like she was mentioning. We see it through Potrero Kids when we see our kids go on to kindergarten, but also the personal experience of we see our own transition with our own children. And I'll share more about what that looks like going from different schools, because my transition's a little bit different compared to Rebecca's children. But we have just a lot of just tips, and like if you are here for looking at the PKW transition, a lot of these things that we're going to be sharing can be exactly used for your transition into PKW, because that is a transition for the children into a different campus. So it's very similar. I mean, just it will be a different concept inside school, but the transition is very similar. And that's what we're probably mainly trying to tackle right now, is the transition part, and not so much the education part that you're probably thinking about also.
All right. Thank you, Mari. So our agenda for tonight is I will kick us off with talking a little bit about your experience, in particular as parents entering a new school community. Then I'll address what your child's emotional responses, the range thereof, might be. And then I'll pass it to Mari, who will talk a bit about how to support your child through that transition, some different strategies and things like drop off, how to make that easy and seamless and supportive. And lastly, unexpected challenges. So things that you can kind of be aware of, on alert for in your child's transition. And then she will kick it back to me. I will talk about the academic component, the parent emotional experience. And lastly, I have a few books I can recommend that you can enjoy with your child in anticipation of that. So let me just start it off by saying, in terms of the new school community, the people that are going to be really driving that and affected by it the most are actually going to be the parents. Like, you are choosing a school or have chosen a school where you're going to be raising your child for a big portion of their childhood, and you're going to be doing that with a community of people around you. So it's really important that you're not just thinking of it through the eyes of your child and kind of dropping them off and whatever. You are entering a community where you're going to build partnerships, relationships with other people. And that is really important for you to have a sense of personal commitment, investment, responsibility to making that community great. So from the moment you start, even though you might feel like, I'm brand new, I have no idea what to do here, you want to push yourself to get involved in some way that feels approachable to you. If you are an extreme extrovert like myself, you might want to join the PTA and join a bunch of committees and see how you can, help slice up snacks for your kids' recess time or something. But if that's not your vibe, there will be plenty of other ways, quietly making photocopies for teachers in the office, or even from the comfort of your own home, offering to just send emails to follow up on things that might be being planned at the school, or tech support for teachers who always need it, things like that you can do. So you want to connect right away and lending a hand is one of the easiest and best ways to do it, because guess what? The schools always want help and support from families. Another thing you want to do is connect with the other families on a personal level as much as you can right away. So if you are at drop off where there are other people mingling around, like push yourself to introduce yourself, have the kids introduce themselves, and just see, if there's a natural way, like, hey, should we all meet up this weekend for a playground play date? Or, just even introducing yourself is a good start, but seeing if you can help facilitate, because there won't be many people in most cases to do that for you. But connecting with other families is a really easy thing to do, because as kind of out of place as you feel, everyone feels that way, and they're just looking for connection. They're looking to share this experience with other families and raise kids together. That's the best way to raise kids and support them along the way, is giving them a community. Another important thing to keep in mind, you will for sure have things that catch you off guard, that surprise you, that you have immediate concerns about. I promise you, like, there is no school on the planet that you're going to walk into where you're just like, gosh, everything is perfect. There's going to be some teacher who yells a little too loud, or a bathroom that feels unsupervised. Whatever it is, the most important thing you can do is take a deep breath and give the community, the school, the benefit of the doubt. You know that they've been there way longer than you, and there are going to be reasons for things to be certain ways, and you just don't know what they are yet. So my advice is a spirit of curiosity. Try to bring curiosity. Oh, interesting that they're having the kids eat at this time in this place. I wonder why that is. There must be a good reason for it. And, that's not to say that if you don't have a concern that's serious, bring it up, but having first that breath and that spirit of like, I'm new here, I'm going to learn what the reasons are, is really important, and will help you win the support of the school and make you one of the parents that they're happy to see rather than afraid of, which is important. Like, you want to build that trust with people and have them know that you're giving them the benefit of the doubt, even when you might have a concern, and it'll build a really good platform of trust for that. So communicate with gentleness and kindness, and your child might come home with some crazy stories. As you've seen in preschool, they will come home and tell you, a strange man showed up in my classroom today, and, they tried to make me leave, and you're like, what is going on? And it turns out, a teacher's husband delivered a lunch, and you're like, okay, that wasn't really the whole story. So same thing with kindergarten. They will come home and claim that a child, stole from them or hit them, or, they made a new best friend. Just take all of that with a deep breath, a grain of salt, to kind of let it shake out to what the truth of the situation is, which will usually be more complex. But just communicating with gentleness and kindness, and even with your child when they're telling you what may sound like a wild story, like, okay, try not to have an extreme reaction that they're going to be kind of rewarded with and want to keep it going. Like, oh, that's interesting, can you tell me more about that, is a good way to go. Like, just saying to your child, tell me more, what else happened? And you might get to more levels of truth with a little bit more of that. But again, spirit of curiosity, trusting the school, giving them the benefit of the doubt are my core ethos for kind of how to approach your new community. Now I will talk briefly about your child's emotional response. So you are going to meet a new version of your child when they start at a new school. And it's going to be a surprise who they are as an early kindergartner. I want to promise you right now, that is not permanently who they will be, but there will be new stimuli, new things. So new things will be drawn out of that kid that you think right now so well, and their reactions. Things are about to change. So the first days and weeks will be exhausting. Just assume that. Your child, who seems to have endless energy for bouncing off the walls, will finally be tired. They will come home exhausted, and they will show it in different ways. For a lot of kids, they hold in all that stress during the day in their new place, and they do want to be their best self and do their best job. So when they come home to you, guess what? They have the comfort of totally falling apart with their family, who they know will love them no matter what. So just prepare for, that side of them might appear. You might see tantrums, you might see regressions, things like kids who were totally able to plate a meal for themselves, cut up their food, feed themselves, might suddenly be like completely overwhelmed by the prospect of having to take care of themselves that way. There's no right or wrong answer of how to deal with that. You want to show them love, you want to have boundaries, you have to kind of navigate your own comfort level and values with that, but just trust you're going to see some level of a child being put in a challenging situation, which is of course how they learn and grow, and you want that for them, but in the moment, it might not always look pretty. Ask specific questions instead of just, how was your day? That's a lot for a kindergartner to process. They can't communicate the way that we can in that way. So things like, who did you sit with at lunch? What book did you read? Was there a toy in your classroom that you liked? Try and be specific. It not only will get you more information, but it will make them feel good being able to share something that's sort of an easy answer that they can actually answer for you. And lastly, if you have a teacher or a school that publishes lesson plans or communicates in some way about what kids are doing in school, use that and ask open-ended questions. So, oh, you're learning about animals in school. What animal did you study today? Or I see you had art today. What did you paint? Did you do some paintings? What kind of medium did you use? Did you use crayons? Did you use pencils? Those are the types of things that are nice to be able to connect with your child about, but just assume that the child you will be seeing at the end of the day will be tired, and you will, for the first time as a parent, have a kind of wall that's not as easy to penetrate because it's not preschool. It's not a lot of updates and close contact the same way for most of you. So just be prepared that it's going to be a new level of seeing that independence and seeing your child pretty exhausted. So on that note, I'm going to hand it off to Mari, who can talk about, okay, now I've got this tired, overwhelmed child. What do I do with them? Mari, what do you do with these children?
So those are all some great points. And now we're trying to think about like, how can you support your child during this transition into kindergarten, or even those who are going into PKDW or going to something different. And so, I mean, I feel like the biggest thing, like what you said, Rebecca, your child is going to go through so many different emotions, and just be prepared for that. Like, just know in your head, it's going to be a few weeks of your child pushing limits, doing whatever it is, because they don't know how to handle what's going on. And way you can support them is creating a more of a peaceful home environment for them and a routine. So they are in structure all day. And so they need just a space where they can just calm down, get everything prepared. So think of it just like if you're going to work, and how you feel in the morning, if you feel prepared when you don't have lunch prepared and you're like scrambling or trying to scramble to get ready. It's exactly the same thing for them. Just like we mentioned, when you come into the preschool, we always ask, please come in by 9:30, because then the children are starting to transition to circle time. And it's like if you're walking into the middle of a meeting and you don't know what's going on, same thing. So you want to prepare them before, maybe do like a nighttime routine or an afternoon routine when they get home. That way there's just some kind of structure at home and they know what's going to happen, and they like what's going on. They like to know what's going to happen next instead of feeling out of control. And so, some tips that we like to suggest is create, nighttime, maybe setting up the meals, having them be part of those meals. Some things that I like to do, I ask, what would you guys like for lunch this week, or something that they can kind of look forward to, because they have some control when they're going into a classroom where they don't have any control. Other ways that you can help them is, Rebecca will mention them later, is reading books about the transition and how it's all normal. You want to just give them a lot of patience during this time, a lot of love and understanding. Like I mentioned, you're going to see probably a very different child during that time, and just try your best not to say anything about kindergarten in a negative way, because they will pick up on all of those feelings and cues and take it back into the school. So you don't really know, especially if they're more anxious prone. Think of other things. Biggest stuff that you probably don't think about, I mean, very similar to preschool, is setting everything up, like besides the lunch, but even setting up their clothes for the week. Like those small little things add up and really are helpful. So you're not scrambling of, especially if they don't have like a uniform, and trying to figure out what what they're going to wear the next day. It's just taking away the morning stressors, breakfast in the morning, where they can sit down and actually eat breakfast versus like eating in the car and they're stressed about going in the car and eating, and you're trying to drive and get there on time. So just kind of imagine if it was you going through the process. Kids feed off of our own energy and our own anxiety. So you want to think of it the same way for them. Even when you're doing drop off, like Rebecca mentioned, community is going to be a huge part of what you're going to get out of the new school or at PKW, the new program that you're in. And the reason why is when you go into drop off, they're going to feed off of how you feel. And I can tell you there's going to be majority all of the kindergarten parents are going to be stressed out that day, that week, because they don't know how my child going to react, how are they going to do. So it's a very anxious feeling to let go of your child, especially if it's your first one going in, so they can feed off that. So my biggest thing is just try to stay as calm as you can. When you drop them off, try to do like a quick drop off or have a routine. So there's some schools that open like 15-20 minutes early. Get there if there's more time that your child needs, and just kind of let them do their own thing and connect to the other parents, because we focus so much on the kids and how they are anxious or how they're feeling, but you need to pay attention to yourself. Like Rebecca mentioned, you need to create your own community, because like she said, you are part of that community. So the more you put yourself out there, the more you put yourself in school environment, or even just connecting to another parent, you'll feel more aligned with the school, and you're also going to feel more comfortable leaving them there, because you already feel some kind of connection maybe with other parents, and they start meeting new friends, and it all goes hand in hand. Maybe take some tissue boxes for everyone to share, or take some kind of snack, some kind of commodity that you guys are all in it together, because you're not alone. I guarantee you're not going to be the only one that probably goes into the car and starts tearing up. I was definitely that parent that was tearing up at drop off or going into the car afterwards, thinking like, okay, now they're off, running off to school. So just make sure for yourself to add that into your own plan, because it will happen. The other thing I really want to talk about is unexpected changes and challenges. So you work so long just to go to tours, going through the admission process, trying to figure out which one is the right school for your child, hoping this is like the long haul, whether it's a K through 8 or a K through 5th grade. And you're thinking, we're going to be there for the long haul. This is going to be our school. And sometimes it doesn't go that way. Sometimes maybe it's the right school at the moment. And then maybe a few years later, or even that year, you realize it's not the best fit for my child. And I can tell you, both of my children have they're going through another transition right now. So they're going on their third school for the fall. And the reason why is because of learning differences. So they needed a school that was better suited for their dyslexia. But you're going through the same challenge of like, okay, what happened now? We need to look for something different. So I just always share with parents that maybe something didn't fit for long-term, but it could have been something where it was a year really good for you for the beginning or for what your child needed in the moment, but don't feel like it's a big negative thing to move on to something else in a year or 2 years if that's what your child needs. Because a lot of times it's the transition part of going to somewhere else that can be overwhelming, but in reality, you're doing it for a reason. So I just wanted to be out there and be very clear that it happens to a lot of people. A lot of people do transition to different schools for many different reasons. And sometimes what you thought was right when you were in preschool might not look that way. And there's nothing negative if that happens to you, because there's many people who are transferring, changing, doing different things. And then you just kind of go back to exactly what you're looking at right now of what we're sharing, of going into a new transition. So everything like Rebecca mentioned, and I mentioned earlier, yes, we were talking about kindergarten, but this is really about transitioning into a new school and going to a new environment. So these are all things that I'm going to be doing specifically with my rising 4th and 7th grader going into a new school, because they have to do the exact same thing as kindergartners do. They got to figure out the land, new space, new friends, new community on my end also. And so everyone's kind of going through the exact same thing all over again. And it's just creating that space at home for them to be able to talk to you about stuff. They are on the younger end, but they sometimes do, have the ability to tell you what's going on. And so the biggest thing is just creating that space at home, because they do pent up a lot of their feelings because they have to follow the new structure, the new rules, the new teacher, the kids. There's so much happening during the day that they have no time to really express themselves, and they have to hold it together. It's not where they just go to preschool and play all day. They're going to be going through lessons in math and language and reading and science. And there's so many things that they have to navigate that they want a safe place at home. And so that's the biggest thing that you can do, is just have an open ear for them and listen to what they have to say. So Rebecca, I'm going to pass it back to you, and then I'll answer any questions at the end.
Thank you so much, Mari. That's so helpful. And, also trust that these teachers, almost all of them, are very experienced. The schools, even for the newer teachers, are very focused and supportive of that positive kindergarten transition. So it's really just going to be a couple of weeks of, wow, this is like a big deal. And really, for most people, only a couple of days of it feeling like a really big deal and really new. But the kids settle in, almost all of them, incredibly quickly, and the teachers know how to guide them through that process. So again, it comes back to have some trust in the team. And like Mari said, just keep it simple, just make home predictable, quiet, calm. I would also add, avoid just doing tons of screen time. It seems like a really easy solution. Oh man, they've had such a rough day. Give them 3 hours at night. Try to avoid that. Try to have some art supplies out or some books around, or play with them, just casually, so that they don't totally just shift into screen zombies. It doesn't help them really process what they've been through in the day, and it can kind of just deplete them even more. But I really liked Mari's suggestions of picking out clothes in advance. You can pick out breakfast in advance and make it something special. And you have to walk a fine line between, you want to have some of their favorite snacks and, some new clothes, but you don't also want to put all the pressure on this is the biggest deal thing ever. You want to walk the line of hey, what do you want for breakfast this week? So you know that they're having something that they like, but not putting all the pressure on everything to be perfect. And as Mari said, giving them the space to have whatever feelings they got to have. They might be coming home every day feeling really sad or really overwhelmed. And even though it'll be tempting to just jump into that ditch with them, try to give them the space and, hey, draw a picture of what the toughest part was, and can you draw me a picture of your school? Oh, that part looks kind of nice. You can find little things to help them focus on the positive without negating their feelings. But it's all about getting to know your kid as a person. They're really becoming their own human with their own individual experience, and just connecting with them and giving them that space and time is going to be the most important thing. And again, having that space for yourself. It was a bad decision on my part. I remember with my first kid that I ended up kind of leaving the day open for myself, because I felt oh, what if he needs me? I should just be available. The kindergarten is not going to call you to just show up and hang out in the classroom. So definitely, if you're an anxious person like myself, plan some big errands that day so that you are distracted. A lot of you work full time anyway, so great, you go to work and do your thing. But yeah, just know yourself. And I will just say, what Mari said, finding ways to connect with the other parents. My favorite icebreaker, and you might have noticed I do this at Potrero Kids too, is to show up the first day with a tissue box where I've written in huge black letters, Kinder parents, or, PK parents. And it just kind of makes people laugh. And for the people who actually are feeling teary, it makes them feel okay, this is okay. But for people who are just whatever, it's just kind of silly. So think about, bringing something like that. If you're the type of person who just wants to connect with other people and have a prop, that's a great prop. Or food or coffee. That's always a winner too. So I am going to wrap us up with two last things: academics and the parent experience overall. So academics, I really only have one bullet point. Please do not stress about the academics. The teachers in kindergarten are going to be doing lessons and stuff just for the sake of getting the kids into a routine. They're not going to be trying to aggressively teach any important skills in those early weeks. Do not stress about the academics. You won't have any sense of that for months of even what's happening, because so much is going to be setting the structures and routines. So if academics are your focus, do that at home, like read books, ask questions, Google things together, but that won't be happening at school and doesn't need to at that point. It's all just setting a stage. The parent experience overall, it is harder for the parent than the child, almost across the board. Like we are just bringing, think about it. Our whole childhood that we still carry with us is arriving with us on our kids' first day. We are getting triggered by whatever triggered us, however many years ago that was that we first started kindergarten. Be aware of all your baggage and all of your hopes and dreams that you've just imbued into your perfect child. Like you are carrying way more. Your kid is just waking up and like going somewhere, and it's not that big of a deal for them in the end. It's way bigger of a deal for you. So just like keep that perspective in mind, take care of yourself, check in with your friends, and try to be honest. Like try to not do the whole like, oh, we're just so proud of little whatever here, like doing just like, you can be real and be like, yeah, you know, it's kind of tough, or I'm not sure about this school, or not sure if they have the best teacher or whatever, but being honest is going to get you a lot further. And that's really the most important thing, is just like tap into your best self, set yourself up for success so you can support your child in a way that isn't all about you, even though there will be parts that are about you. So some of the recommended books, unfortunately, I don't have a super easy way to show you this list right now. I'm going to read them aloud and put them in my notes. Same but Different by Jenny Suek Ostecki. Goodbye Preschool, Hello Kindergarten by Sonika Ellis. Wherever You Go by Pat Zillow, and What Do You Do with an Idea by Kobi Yamada. So those are some books that were recommended by, oh, thank you, Mari, for putting them in the chat. Perfect. By one of our longtime pre-K teachers. So those are some great ones, and you can find others, but the best part is you don't need to find the world's best book. You just need to actually make the time to sit and read it with your kid, because then you two can start your own conversation about what you think about. So just create that space. And that's kind of it. We did a pretty rockin' job, Mari, of keeping it to like our sort of 30-minute, but you have something to add. Go ahead. Let's hear it.
I do, because I forgot to mention, it's just back to what you were saying, Rebecca, but also just basics of how to get them prepared. At Potrero Kids, we're very big on making sure that we work on like the emotional, social component, because when you go into kindergarten, it's not about like, oh, great, everyone knows their ABCs, they know how to write or read. What the teachers are really looking for is that they have certain skills, because those are the skills are going to help them just navigate their days. So things that you can start working on, if you haven't worked on with them already, is teaching them how to put on their own jacket, teach them how to zip it up or button up their own jacket, how to put on their shoes. So it's a lot of just like small life skills that will go a long way for them, so that they're not stressed out about like, oh, I need help to put on a jacket. Oh, I need help to put on shoes. So it's just really just self skills for them to be more independent, and then they will be more confident throughout their full day that they can follow all these things. At Potrero Kids, we work a lot about transitions and following, you know, the guidelines of like following the line or following directions, but those are all little things that you can do at home and practice with them all summer long to just get them prepared and ready to move on, where they feel more capable to bring on the day besides the academic part. So I just wanted to make sure that's a huge thing. Like it's the small things that matter going in versus like, does my child know how to read? All that will come in time. And like I mentioned, that's all separate, and it will come, like, trust the process. And if things are happening, then that's a different conversation, but pay attention to the social side, because they need to learn how to be able to share with other kids and adapt. That would be a bigger, easier transition for your child.
And now you reminded me of something else, and I just want to make it clear, Mari and I could go all dang night with this. Like there's just so much about this process that's fascinating and interesting, and a whole, you know, new lens into your child and getting to know them. But the thing you reminded me of, Mari, talking about stuff, try to avoid buying as much stuff as you possibly can before they start kindergarten. So if you do the big like box store run a couple weeks before kindergarten, they're going to pick stuff out based on their preschool self. And bad news for you, it's going to turn out in 2 weeks. There's some character that everyone else at the school loves, and that's got to be on their lunchbox. So try to just send them with crappy old stuff. It seems counterintuitive, but those first few days, they don't care. Their old familiar stuff is nice anyway. And then make it kind of even a reward, like a celebration of the end of the first week or two of kindergarten. Like, hey, now that you've been there, is there something new you would like to bring your lunch in for school? Like, what do you need? And then they'll have a better sense of themselves at that point. And or committing to like an expensive backpack, like don't spend $50, like send them with a just camping backpack, a reusable backpack, something you've had, and then let them pick something out later that you know they're going to like, because it'll just be sad throwing all that stuff out after only 3 weeks of school. So, okay, gosh, I gotta stop. There's like so much more, but remember, we are available and a resource throughout this process. And we have definitely had families hit us up in August with like an email like, hey, is this normal? Or hey, it's going really well. So like we exist, we will continue to exist as supports for you. But as I promised, I always try and keep things kind of efficient for the purposes of evening when you are juggling dinners and your kids and all that. So we're at 6:40. Please feel free to drop off if you've got things to attend to. It was really nice having a bunch of you show up and trickle in and